Hey everybody, it's your old pal Mike. I hope you're happy, healthy, and safe. Yeah, check out the Star Trek t-shirt. I wasn't kidding. These things, I got tons of them. You know what I love about this shirt is that not only is it a dumb joke, but it completely ignores the seriousness of the Vulcan Ponfar, which happens once every 7 years and is part of the Vulcan reproductive cycle. It's also no joke. Check out that Voyager episode with Tuvok. That one, gives me the heebie-jeebies. This week's episode is going to be a little different. We are going to do a Q&A. I asked my followers on Instagram, you can follow me there, to send in some questions for me to answer on camera because this happens to be the week of my 10-year anniversary with my wife, and out of love and respect and friendship, I won't be touching any guitars, I won't be repairing, I won't be making videos or editing or any of that, but I did go ahead and preload, so there's going to be content anyway. Without further ado, let's get started. And speaking of getting started, Rich Walker 86 asks, how did you get started working on your own gear? And that's a great question. I was always one of those kids that took things apart just to see how they worked. I will add that they rarely got put back together, but that's a personal failing that I feel that I've overcome. As I discovered music and started playing guitar when I was 11, soon enough I got curious about how those worked too. And even to this day, one of the first things I do when I get a new guitar is I dismantle it. I want to see the routing, I want to see the wiring, I want to see how it's strung, I want to see what kind of pickups are in there, I want to see everything that makes a guitar what it is. And that was kind of a theme of mine through high school, where I was maybe one of the only more cavalier members of my friend group, where I wasn't so scared to take something apart, like a guitar. So if somebody had a bad pot, I'd take it apart and learn how to solder. When I was playing shows and touring, sometimes I even teched for other bands. If someone broke a string on stage, I'd grab it, switch out for one of my guitars, and go change their strings and bring it back and show would go on. Speaking on a more professional basis, I feel like I really got my start in guitar teching when I realized that a guitar tech in my hometown was taking advantage of me. I would pay them to do setups and repairs, and it felt like half the time they weren't actually doing the work. And that really upset me because I don't want to be taken advantage of, and if he was doing that to me, then he was probably doing that to a lot of other people as well. And so as a result of that, I set about learning how to adjust a truss rod and how to intonate. The first time I intonated my Les Paul, I think I did that in high school, and my God, it took me like 3 hours, and I'm sure I did it wrong. But it got me interested. It got me started, and soon enough, other people started bringing me their guitars, and so yeah. I hope that answers that question. Moving on, Earn285, ERRNN 285. That's why I said it that way. I hope that's correct. Nobody knows how to pronounce my Instagram handle anyway. I wish I could change it. So if I did bad, I understand. Well, this person asks, most starstruck Rockstar moment. Thinking about it, that's really hard to answer because living in the greater Los Angeles area, I do a lot of work for some pretty well-known people. I once dropped a guitar off at Nikki Sixx's house, got to go inside and hang out with him for an hour. And I wouldn't say that like I'm the biggest Motley Crue fan. I don't think that's ever been my thing. But he was super nice and gave me maybe the most expensive bottled water I have ever seen. I think I still have the bottle somewhere. And his mansion was decked out in leopard print carpet, even on the walls. So that was pretty special. The first time that I met one of my guitar heroes, which is Nels Cline, I'm sure that I wilted like a flower because that guy, incredible musician, the king of jazz masters in my book. And he was so nice. And what was lovely about it is I met him backstage at a Wilco show in Seattle. I think that was 2015? And I was hooked up with backstage passes through Woody of Mastery Bridge, who is somebody that I love and appreciate and cherish. And we got backstage and Nels saw us and walked over to me and said, you know Jazz Masters, you're someone I need to talk to. And from that point on, I couldn't form complete sentences. I freaked out. I was in the presence of greatness, and I lost my cool. But eventually, I think I got to make up for it because I got to interview him for Fretboard Journal in a giant spread that we did on him. I got to go to New York and hang out with him and have lunch where he complained about Ennio Morricone's soundtrack for The Hateful Eight, which he said was phoned in. So that was fun. Other famous people moments. This is not a guitar thing, but there was one time that my wife was working for the Shakespeare Center of Los Angeles, and she got to interview Tom Hanks, and that's cool as heck. And so vicariously through her, I was freaking out. But then we went to a performance of him in King Lear, and I could not talk to him. I just could not. I was within 15 feet of him, and I saw him in the flesh, and I was beaming, but it was like seeing the Mona Lisa in person. You can't even deal with that kind of magnitude. So Tom Hanks is a big one. I nearly met him. Was that King Lear? I can't remember.
It was Henry IV.
Henry IV, thank you. It wasn't King Lear. I don't even know what King Lear is. Maybe I should keep that in, you correcting me, because I'm a dumb Shakespeare person.
I was coming over to tell you that it wasn't King Lear.
Oh, but you didn't want to interrupt my flow?
Yeah.
Thanks, babe.
Yeah, I love you.
I love you. I'm real bad at Shakespeare. Moving on, _ Ben Said _ or is that Ben Sade? I'm not sure. Either way. Tips for when to continue playing when you lose inspiration or motivation. For me, what has always worked when I feel like I'm stuck in a rut or I'm bad at guitar or any of that, number one is just to walk away for a little bit, take a break. Just like they tell you when you're mixing a record, if you get too in your head about it, you start losing perspective, and that makes it really hard to continue or to do your best work. You might start second guessing every move you make. When it comes to guitar, I will take a break, especially if I'm like recording, if I'm doing a part and trying to nail it, or I'm having trouble with the tone. Walking away is really the best thing that you can do, I think, because it gives you time to recoup. But another thing that really works for me when I'm feeling stuck in the guitar is either tuning your guitar to something very strange, even without a tuner. Just tune your guitar. Just change the notes. Get yourself out of whatever patterns you've built up and start playing there. Find new chords. Find new dissonance. I also find that figuring out what weird sounds you can make on a guitar is a fun distraction in times like that, which is why I love the Jazzmaster so much, because the string length behind the bridge, you can totally tune that to correspond to notes that you're playing on the fretboard. And so trying to make cinematic noises or to emulate a waterphone, finding a way to get yourself out of patterns really helps. Or another tip I have is pick up a different instrument entirely. When I first started getting into mandolin, which I don't own now and I'm really sad about it, but I found the mandolin flipping the strings on me was incredibly eye-opening. It really helped me kind of reset things that I had going on in my head, little blocks or box patterns that I was stuck in. It really helped me kind of take myself out of the fretboard. So if you have access to a different instrument, piano, cello, violin, tuba, anything else that will help you get out of a guitar player's mindset, I think that that's incredibly valuable. Yeah, so those are my tips for how to get out of a slump. Here's one. Ed Mail asks me, favorite McElroy product? If you don't know the McElroy brothers from the amazing podcast, My Brother and Me, it's this advice show where they take questions and give poor answers on purpose. But they are joyful and they are open-minded. And also the sheer amount of creative output that they have is just mind-boggling. They do other podcasts such as Schmanners and Wonderful and Sawbones. One of my favorite things that they do is the podcast The Adventure Zone, which is a D&D podcast that they do with their father, Clint. So I love The Adventure Zone. I love Mabim Bam. But if I had to pick a favorite McElroy product, it's Monster Factory, which is the YouTube series in which Griffin and Justin, the youngest and eldest brother, fire up a video game, get into the character creator, and make something really weird looking. And they do it from love. Their goal is to make a hideous creature and love it for who it is. So they've played games like Dark Souls and Fallout 4, all the Fallout 4 videos. Final Pam is a legend. Truck Shepherd, a big fave. And I will go back and revisit those videos whenever I'm sad or I need to pick me up because they're just joyful, irresponsible fun, and it's good to have that sometimes because the world can be very heavy. So yeah, I'm a giant McElroy fan. I listen all the time and check out the podcasts and series that I mentioned. Next question. Here's one. Hot Dog Knight asks, I can set my neck relief, my action, and my intonation, but setting up my action in relation to my neck radius always befuddles me. What do now? My best advice is really simple. Get some radius gauges. Stu Mac sells gauges that are meant to help you set the curvature of your bridge saddles in relation to the curvature of your fretboard. So if you've got, say, a 9.5 inch radius on your neck, you'll want to set your saddles to a 9.5. Now, there is a lot of discussion in guitar communities about the benefits of perfectly matching the radius versus the benefits of making the bridge radius a little wider for better bends. I would say that always comes down to personal preference. And once you have radius gauges and you know what to play with, you can kind of figure that out for yourself. And I fully encourage and support that. For me personally, I like my radius to match exactly because I want all of my strings to, if not be equidistant from the frets, I want them to feel identical. I don't want to push down a G string and have that be much harder to push down than a D or an E or B. I want to have sort of equal compliance across the fretboard, and that makes guitars way easier for me to handle. So get yourself some radius gauges. They're not that expensive, and to be honest, they are my most used tool. So get you some radius gauges. De Dos Cruzados asks, are boutique guitar prices out of control, or is the value truly there? And that's a tricky one to answer because it definitely seems like guitar prices overall are sort of bloated. It feels like the barrier to a good entry-level guitar keeps rising steadily. But when you factor in inflation, they're really not all that different than they were in the so-called golden era. When it comes to boutique prices, that's really hard because a lot of boutique builders are already at a disadvantage because of reach, because of brand recognition. And I would say that a mass-produced guitar, of course, will always be cheaper because they're producing so many of them. The cost factor is lowered dramatically when you're buying in bulk. Say if you're buying 100,000 500K potentiometers, you're going to get a price break on those versus if you're buying 100 because you're putting out maybe 4 to 20 guitars a year. And also, there is an inherent value to most boutique builders because you are dealing with someone who is making a handful of instruments at a time, but you are able to interact with that person and have a guitar built specifically for your needs rather than buying something off the rack and being dissatisfied with it for whatever reason. Maybe the neck shape, maybe the pickups, maybe there's something about the hardware you don't like. So you can spec all of that out at the beginning with a builder that you trust. When it comes to the guitars that I have had built specifically for myself, the value is definitely there. I'm thinking of my baritone Jazzmaster that you haven't met yet. It's called Darth Vader, an amazing guitar, and Creston went all out meeting my needs. In my case, I had very specific ideas about what I needed to be happy with the guitar, and that includes a 1 5/8 inch neck. That includes a neck that wasn't 28 or 30 inches. I needed something shorter because once a guitar gets super long, I stop having fun with it. It's not fun for me to like throw my shoulder out of joint to reach a low C. So I needed that, and I also needed my baritone to be themed around Darth Vader because I don't know why, I just have this Star Wars thing when it comes to guitars. Creston embraced all of those things, and the guitar that I got from him blows away my expectations. It is everything that I have ever wanted in a baritone and literally could not get any other way. There are baritone Jazzmasters, but they are like 30 inches long, and that's way too taut for me. I don't like that feel. And also they don't come with vibratos, and I absolutely need a Jazzmaster vibrato. Creston met those needs. And he met them perfectly in a way that I just don't think I would have been able to achieve with something off the shelf. So if your needs are very specific and you're having trouble finding those things from what's available at a music store, the value is definitely there for me, and what you're paying for is so much more than you're going to get from a factory. So yeah, have a look at some boutique builders. Here are some of my favorites. Tunatone, Doug Cower, Creston Lea, Shelton Electric, Equitz Guitars, which I've featured on the channel, Deimel Guitars. I'm spacing and everybody's going to be so mad at me, but there are so many amazing builders out there. And if you are in the market for something that's maybe a little spendy, but spec'd out for your needs, have a look around. Danocaster. I forgot Danocaster because he quit and then unquit. Danocaster. Dutch Courage _ asks, what do you think of more modern pickup designs like lace sensors, Illumitones, or Fishman Fluents? Do you like any of them, or is it a vintage style forever situation? It depends. I think there's plenty of room for a lot of interesting and weird pickup types out there. There are some pickup winders out there who are doing incredible stuff, and I'm such a huge fan. That's Lawler, The Creamery, that's Novak, McNelly, Lambertone, Brandon Wound. There are so many great pickup winders out there, and wonderful options for different or unique sounds that I think you should try everything, to quote Zootopia. But when it comes to very modern pickups like EMG or Lace, I would say that I enjoy them. I don't find a whole lot of use for most of them because I'm just a Jazzmaster guy and I like the sound of a good Jazzmaster pickup. But I will say that Lace pickups, there is nothing on the planet that sounds as 1990s to me as a Lace sensor pickup in a Strat. I'm a huge Smashing Pumpkins fan, and those pickups just define that sound for me, that gigantic, hi-fi almost sound that Corgan got from his lace-loaded Strats. If I ever owned a Strat, it would be getting a set of Lace sensors immediately because I want to play Zero, I want to play Bullet, I want to play those songs and nail the sounds. But as a Jazzmaster player, there's not a whole lot of options from those companies. And actually, this is a really good question because at the beginning of the year, I actually reached out to Lace and asked if they'd be interested in making a Jazzmaster specific pickup because I'm not a big Strat guy, but I would love to have that sound. And it seemed like things were going really well for a moment. We had meetings, we talked about sounds and what I would look for out of the pickup, and then they just kind of ghosted me. So Lace, if you see this, let's get back on that horse, guys. Let's do the dang thing. Let's make a weird pickup for Jazzmaster people that can sound like the 90s. Please and thank you. My friend Richie.gif asks, B'Elanna or Ensign Ro? And if I had to talk about Star Trek crushes, I like B'Elanna a lot. What a wonderful character. I love her struggling between her Klingon and human identities. I did have a crush on Ro Laren when I was younger. And I might still. I don't know. I haven't really examined that. But if we were to expand this question a little bit to like, who would I want to go on a date with in 10 forward? Who would I want to have a drink with? It would be Guinan all the way. Guinan is such an incredible character, and I feel like we never got enough of Guinan in TNG or the movies. In fact, I would love to see a Guinan series, kind of based on the Young Indiana Jones series that happened in the 90s. It would be incredible because Guinan is from a race of people that is long lived, I think over 500 years, if I'm remembering my Star Trek lore correctly. But there's such a rich vein of stories to be told with Guinan. You could start every episode with Guinan serving a drink to a Starfleet officer and them saying, oh man, I had a hard day at the grind. Oh man, the warp core did this, or the inertial dampeners, it's always the inertial dampeners. And Guinan could lean in and say, that reminds me of a time when, and then Star Trek, Guinan, and then we see a young actor playing Guinan and getting into all kinds of mischief and crazy situations. Honestly, that'd be a lot more interesting to me than Picard was. But yeah, give us more Guinan. More Guinan, please. Thank you. Dustin Robert Price asks, would love to hear your opinion in a video on all the gear discourse of having higher quality equipment making you a better player, musician, creative. Is that a real thing? Are people really saying this? Is this a discussion that I'm unaware of? Are people like spending time telling each other that having expensive guitars makes you a better musician? I don't think I agree with that. I think having the right gear can certainly improve your ability to create and play because you're not struggling against a piece of equipment. But being a good guitar has nothing to do with the dollar value. I think my favorite instruments, yeah, maybe I'm a hypocrite. They happen to be vintage. Pancake is my favorite guitar, but it's not because it's old. Like, I don't really assign personal value to the guitar because it's from 1961. I assign value to that guitar because it has the right specs for me. The neck is skinny. It has a certain sound. It weighs a certain way. It's the right guitar for me. And I will admit that when I play Pancake, I just feel like I can do things on that guitar that I can't do on anything else that I own. Even R2 is a great guitar and it's almost identical in terms of specs, but Pancake just speaks to me. And that has nothing to do with how much I paid for it or the prestige of having an old guitar. And, you know, I have played some $300 guitars that were flat out amazing and fun to play and made me find new chords or new songs. And I just think that that kind of conversation is inherently reductive. There is nothing about having a $3,000 guitar that is instantly going to make you a better or more creative songwriter. What it will do is give you bragging rights, or, you know, maybe it will be a really good instrument. Maybe it will play perfectly, no buzz, perfect fretwork, perfect weight, all of that. But good gear is good, but it's not the most important thing. It really isn't. Here's a good one from my incredibly supportive new friend, Heart Mechanics. CBS calls. Another Trek show in the works. They want a guitar tie-in and you're the designer. Unlimited budget. What does that guitar look like, feel like, and sound like? I have two answers for this, and the easiest one is the 2018 Gibson Modern V. I know that was incredibly controversial when it first came out, and I was never quite clear on it, although I think it had something to do with the Jackson Roswell Rhodes, which, I mean, they're both asymmetrical Vs. They kind of are similar in a lot of ways. I get that. For me, that guitar always just looked like a Starfleet insignia, and I loved it from the first moment I saw it. Oh my God, I want one still to this day. But they're like $4,000? No! I'll just cut a Starfleet insignia out on my own, unless, I mean, Gibson. Hey, Gibson, I know you got some sitting around somewhere because they didn't sell. If you got one and you want to send it my way, ooh, I'll say thank you in a big, big way. That's the easy answer. The less easy answer is that I would take heavy inspiration from the 90s Smashing Pumpkins video, The End is the Beginning is the End, which is a song from the Joel Schumacher Batman and Robin soundtrack. The prop guitars that Darcy Retzky and James Iha played in that video still look so futuristic and weird to me, and they kind of echo a little bit of like Starfleet ship design to me. There's like blue and red lights all over them, and they are this like metallic gray color. And they are so freaking weird. Like, they didn't look like playable instruments by a long shot, but I still think of those a lot, actually. They're always on my mind. I think that's the coolest prop guitar work that I've ever seen. So yeah, I would probably take heavy inspiration from that music video. And I tried to look up what happened to the guitars and who designed them, and I couldn't find any of that information. So if you happen to know anything about those guitars, let me know, because I think they're the coolest shit ever. I love that. Okay, and one more. This one comes from N. Larson 222, and they ask, as someone who only started following you in the last 2 to 3 years, how did you meet your wife? Which is perfectly timed. I did not plan that, but again, it's our 10th anniversary this week, and it seems about time to tell the story about how your old pal Mike met the love of his life. We met in 2008 in Czech Republic, specifically Prague, where we both had lived. I lived in Davicka, and I would frequently walk downstairs and go to the Kofce, the KFC, because KFC in Europe was amazing. Oh my God, incredible stuff. So we met through mutual friends and kind of hit it off from the first. We had a lot in common. Jokes were aplenty. And so it happened to be the week of the Super Bowl. And so I invited her over to watch the Super Bowl because Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers was playing that year. And I was really excited about that. When you are watching the Super Bowl in Europe, it comes on incredibly late. I think Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers went on at like 3 in the morning or 4 in the morning, but it was worth staying up because we hung out, talked, enjoyed each other's company, and then eventually we both moved home. I was from Pennsylvania and she's from Seattle, and so we were like ships passing in the wind for a long time. She would send messages and I would kind of ignore them because I don't know, I didn't think there would be a relationship there because of the distance between us. But I was wrong. And eventually she got a hold of me. And eventually things clicked. And I came to Seattle to see if that clicked in person. And it did in a big, big way. And so in 2009, I moved to Seattle. We got engaged on my birthday and married 6 months later. And it has been wonderful. Could not be happier or more grateful for her. And also shout out to Prague because it's the best place I ever lived. And if you're from Prague, say hi to it for me. Go have a pivo or a kurzetsy risek or smažený syr on me. Well, not on me because I'm not paying for it, but have one for me. And to you, I say, na zdraví. Anyway, I think that's about enough for today. But thank you to everyone who asked questions. Thank you so much for watching and following and liking and subscribing and doing all of that. If you want to follow me on Instagram, there's a link in the description down below. If you want to see some of my favorite guitar builders, you'll find that down there too. And maybe some Star Trek stuff too, I don't know. But anyway, I hope that you're doing well and taking care of yourself and each other. And I'm going to go celebrate 10 years of marriage because holy crap, that's amazing. Wow. All right. Bye.